Hello, I am Neil Druckmann. I am the creative director and the vice president of Naughty Dog and LGBT representation master. And I am here because there's been a lot of bigotry in this playthrough, so I have decided to take over this playthrough so I can, enlighten these poor, pathetic people into how
Hi,
brilliant.
I'm LGBT member here. Who the fuck invited you?
Well,
Since when did you when did you gain a Portuguese accent?
but then,
The
Mr.
same time when David Cage introduced that to us.
Mr. Harley, please stop being xenophobic about my accent. What I came here to do, Miss Phillips, is I have decided to come here because a lot of people are hating on my character Abby, and I understand, Miss Phillips, that you feel very threatened by the fact that my character is incredibly strong and a very bold depiction of a female in a way that are not at all stereotypical in media. You see, it is incredible. So obviously, being a female yourself, I think you should appreciate what I'm doing for you.
No.
Mr. Druckmann, I've got a question.
Very well. What is it, peasant?
What drugs did you take in between Uncharted 4 and this game?
Well, actually, as you can probably see for this game, I took a lot of weed when I was writing this with Miss Gross. You see, if you see that scene where you see Ellie and Dina taking some weed. That's actually inspired by a real conversation I once had with my wife as we were taking weed in my house. You see, so I felt like it was important to showcase an interesting side of humanity.
Yes, the kind that can get distracted by weed. How romantic.
Alright, and as you can see here through this brilliant set piece that I'm about to showcase in this game, we're about to see a great action showpiece including these wonderful characters Abby, Manny, and Mel.
Who?
Mel is the lady here who's pregnant, Mr. Harley, as you can see, and she's coming along on this mission.
Okay, Neil, she's pregnant. What other traits does she have?
Mr. Harley, I am appalled at you. Just because a woman is pregnant doesn't mean she's an invalid. Pregnant women have all the right to participate in dangerous military missions if they so choose to do so.
That's very irresponsible.
But Jockey, I didn't.
Jockey.
I meant, for what character traits does she have? Pregnancy isn't a character trait.
Mr. Harley, please stop being such a misogynist person. Just because she's pregnant, that doesn't mean she's not allowed to work. You see, pregnant women have all the right choice. Just because a woman is pregnant, that doesn't mean she's an invalid. That is a complete fallacy to do, please. So please stop being...
Neil, I've got another question. In terms of how you're attempting, female representation in games, have you ever played a Tomb Raider game in your life?
I have, but you see, the problem with Tomb Raider, as my good friend Anita Sarkeesian once mentioned, the problem is that Lara Croft is an incredibly over-sexualized character, and is dangerous and very harmful to women. So I have decided to portray my female characters in a different way that is completely unlike what that terrible company Square Enix does.
I have never heard anyone complain about her design.
First off, you're wrong about the company. By the time IDOS were the ones that were IDOS era was the one where Lara was having the big tits. When Square took over, they weren't exactly she didn't exactly have those huge assets anymore.
Well, Mr. Harley, that goes to show you how everybody except Naughty Dog is sexist.
No, it just goes to show how poor research you do.
As for you,
they're being attacked now.
As for you, Miss Phillips. I understand. Look, you have to understand that a character like Lara Croft is harmful to you, and you should appreciate what I'm trying to do. And just completely avoid that kind of horrible female representation. You see, you should, if you want to know why it's offensive, like you asked, you should watch my good friend show. It's called Feminist Frequency. It's a very great show on YouTube that really shows how women are horribly objectified in video games.
I'm okay, thank you.
So as you can see in this action set piece, Yes,
So,
yes, Mr.
Because of course. Yes, Mr. That is my name, Mr. That's racist, you know.
Well,
I can say that because I'm black. You're being racist to me.
well, but I was pretty sure in my research that saying the word Mr. has no racial connotations at all.
They call me Mr. Tibbs, thank you very much.
I will have to look that up. I apologize to you and to everybody from your community. I will try my best to improve, for I am only a human being and sometimes I commit mistakes.
But Neil, you were chastising us for making mistakes 5 minutes ago.
Well, just because I commit mistakes, that doesn't mean you don't commit more mistakes than me, Mr. Harley. You see, you have to understand that I am a person who is always willing to improve and to learn, unlike you, who of course are a Tomb Raider fan, and therefore a horrible, misogynistic person. So...
You know, Neil, I give up. If you can't listen to reason, I mean, I'm dreading for what's going to be next. What, in like Uncharted 5, you're going to reveal that Nathan Drake all this time was a bloody wife abuser.
Unfortunately, Mr. Harley, Naughty Dog is not at all working on Uncharted anymore. Uncharted will be continued on by Sony's San Diego studio. So even though you will not get any more brilliant Uncharted games from me, I'm sure those newcomers might make some kind of average effort. You don't have to worry about that.
Neil, they're your colleagues.
Well, yeah, true, but some of them are a bit misogynist, so I'm afraid I can't quite associate. I don't like associating myself with those people.
How does Sony put up with you?
Well, you see, I make a lot of money for them.
Well, I mean, that's not exactly an invalid point, but you know, I mean, sometimes there's been products that do make a lot of money, but the creator ends up leaving the project. In fact, I mentioned James Bond in the last part. I can actually bring up a good example. Die Another Day, that brought in a lot of money, but the producers knew that if they continued on that path, it would create diminishing returns for the series, so they rebooted it.
I happen to disagree, Mr. Dwebs. I think I found Die Another Day to be an incredibly appalling movie because of how horribly it treats its female characters.
I mean, I don't like the movie either, but treatment of female characters, honestly, was the least of its problems.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you, Mr. Harley. The James Bond franchise in general is incredibly misogynistic.
Have you seen Tomorrow Never Dies?
I don't watch horrible movies like those. Thank you.
So how? Hang on. You said the Bond movies are misogynistic, and you said you don't watch them.
This is exactly the big problem. So much hate on the internet. So many people.
But you just
who
said
just
you haven't
hate.
seen any of them.
It's horrible. Look, I appreciate criticism. I appreciate criticism, Mr. Harley. But if you're just going to mindlessly hate on me, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to just ignore you.
Well, okay, you know what? If you're not gonna listen to me, all you're gonna do is just talk over people. Then I've got nothing more to say to you.
You see, look at behold this sequence. By the way, we are now trying our best to take care of the infected because, as you can see, the infected are still around, and even Abby and her group are still trying their best to get around and to live their best life and try their best in trying to continue living in their community without and trying to take down these infected. As you can see, Abby is a far more capable melee fighter than Ellie because she can literally strangle an infected to death, as you just saw.
That makes no sense, shouldn't it?
I mean, I get different characters having different advantages and disadvantages over the other. So in this case, I will admit, having someone that has different attacks than the other is something I can get behind. It's just while the character we're playing as isn't exactly the most compelling person in the world.
Since when was it established that we could literally strangle the undead?
Mr. Jason, that's because, as you can see, my new character Abby is incredibly physically fit, so she actually is just that strong. Just that's how cool and awesome she is.
I actually have an important question.
Well, wasn't it kind of implied that when you become a cordyceps, the whole need for air isn't really there, especially considering how by the time they're a bloater, I think their mouths are pretty much gone.
So much hate on the internet. I am truly appalled.
Seriously. When was it ever implied that these zombies needed to breathe?
That's because Mr. Jason, remember, these are runners. Technically, they still are using their lungs at this stage.
Of course, that's been oh so well established.
Not to mention, please stop focusing on such minor details like the infected. The true focus of your attention right now should be on my wonderful new cast of characters that I have just employed in a bold chance to make you realize how there's no true villains or heroes in the real world. As for
don't you pretty much have Mr. Duckman? Don't you pretty much have most of these new characters killed anyway?
Also, Neil, your point about there are no truly good or truly evil people in the world, that point's been done better in Series of Unfortunate Events, and that point was presented, of all people, by the main bad guy.
Well, I haven't seen that series. How much representation is in that series? Because I only watch series that have a lot of great representation in them.
I'll argue it has plenty.
I'd say there's a lot. Yeah.
All right, Miss Phillips, I believe you had a question for me.
What have you done with Pedro?
I kidnapped Pedro and I stuffed him in my basement.
Oh yeah, great paragon of
these developers know where
he has been hating. He has been hating on this game ever since this playthrough started. He is a horrible, misogynistic, homophobic person. So I decided to do you a favor and get rid of him.
So you're so your virtuous and tolerant way to handle criticism like that is to kidnap somebody.
Yes.
Mr. Jackman, are you by any chance familiar with a Mr. David Cage?
Well, Mr. David Cage is actually a friend of mine. We've met back when he was actually a second-party developer for Sony Interactive Entertainment. You see, I'm a big fan of his game, what I consider to be his masterpiece, Beyond Two Souls. That's one of the big inspirations for the structure of this game, in fact. I really wanted to create something that was absolutely bold in its structure, much like Beyond Two Souls. And that's the main reason why I have a structure like this in this game.
Wow, that has got to be one of the strongest dogs I've ever seen before. Can literally tackle down a full-on cordyceps.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Jason. Thank you for pointing that out. You see, as you can see, my character Abby has a lot stronger melee-wise. She has much better weapons like a flamethrower that can easily take down the infected. As you can see, Abby is an incredible character that is incredibly compelling.
Why, yes, Mr. Druckmann. She is a much better character, strictly gameplay-wise.
Notice how she's even fighting infected, even a shambler. And notice how incredibly incompetent her AI companions are. That's a great demonstration of how she's so capable that she, even with her incompetent friends, she can still take down the infected on her own.
Wasn't it her incompetent friends who saved her from getting... Wasn't it her incompetent friends who saved her from being chow food, the dog included?
Well, I'm afraid I don't remember. I'm afraid I have no idea what you're talking about. Can we get back to talking about how incredible? Can we go back to talking about how incredibly pro women my game is?
Okay, Dwibs tag again.
Joe, I tried it. Fine. Mr. Druckmann.
Yes, Mr. Harley?
Why in the blue hell did you think that having someone, having part of a side quest be dog murder would be a good idea?
Well, Mr. Harley, it's incredibly simple. You see, the reason I have Ellie kill a dog is to showcase how even what is seemingly just a very nonchalant death can have its repercussions. You see, when you kill someone, you're not just killing a person or even a dog. You're severely impacting and hurting the people who are affiliated with said animal or person. It's a
This is true, but Abby was under attack.
I get that, Neil.
No, sorry, not Abby, Ellie. Jesus Christ.
I get that, Neil, but But from the perspective you showed us the first time, they looked like bastards trying to kill us first. You can't all of a sudden say, oh no, they weren't bastards, they were nice people.
And not only that, Neil, but I've looked ahead in the script, and there's a scene that pretty much makes Abby come off as a full-on psychopath. While we're playing as her, mind you.
I'm afraid I will only discuss that in context, because it becomes a lot easier for me to explain it in context.
Oh, but of course, that'll make it all the more fun for us to have a go at.
Also, Miss Phillips, look, you of all people should appreciate my game. For the entire first half of this game, I have tried very hard to have a very homosexual storyline with specifically with Ellie and Dina. It's a great example of my wonderful skills at representing LGBT people.
I mean, technically yes, but the characters aren't really characters. They're just a couple, and that's it.
But Miss Phillips, don't you understand? I am basically giving a middle finger to all the horrible virgin sexist gamers out there who cannot handle the fact that we have a lesbian protagonist. You see, it's
people like Ellie, though.
Well,
Yeah.
They do like Ellie, true, and that's the main reason why I made her the protagonist of the first half of this game.
But
Mr. Druckmann,
the
why
rest
did you
of
make
the game is not centered around her.
Also, why did you make Dina practically useless in the overall plot?
Well, you have to understand, Mr. Jason, that for the sake of the storyline, yes.
Also, it's not Mr. Jason. Jason's my first name.
All right, what is your last name? Could you please tell me?
Lewis.
Okay, thank you a lot, Mr. Lewis. Well, anyway, Mr. Lewis, you have to understand, I have a story to tell. And it also implied the point of giving Jesse, in particular, one of my other new characters, a chance to also travel with Ellie for one day. So for the purpose of giving Jesse some needed screen time.
Yeah, but did you need to make Dina swallow stupid pills and have her be sporadically pregnant?
Look, Dina is an incredibly supportive girlfriend. Didn't you notice how she always supports Ellie in her revenge quest, and she is always there supportive and taking care of her wounds every night.
Until that one moment when she was suggesting that Ellie just turned things back around, but then easily gave up on it.
Well, that's because you have to realize that at that point, Ellie was just so consumed with revenge, which is horrible, as you know.
A lot of good anyone else did trying to talk her out of it. Sure,
I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis. I'm going to have to interrupt you, Mr. Lewis, because notice, you see, as you can see, turns out one of the reasons the Seraphites started attacking them, that was because they shot a few kids as in terms of an accident. So it's another demonstration of what I'm talking about, how violence begets more violence. It's a true demonstration of how there's no real, truly 100% evil people and truly 100% good people in the world. At the end of the day, we're all just crappy people.
Again, series of unfortunate events did that better.
Well, Mr. Harley, I'm afraid I do not watch shows that don't have, at the very least, one LGBT character in it, in a very prominent role.
Leo, okay, now you're turning this into LGBT representation into a bloody quota.
Well, it's an incredible. Well, that's why my good friend Anya Sarkisian helped me. That female representation and by extension, LGBT representation is incredibly important for the sake of making people feel well.
Okay, unless the work is flat out about LGBT people, you know, a piece of work isn't good or bad because of how many LGBT people are in it. I mean, by that logic, bloody Rocky would be a horrible franchise.
I am genuinely thinking about what you're saying, but at the same time, you're kind of a homophobe, so it's kind of hard for me to take you seriously.
Okay. Shuri, you're the, again, can you help me out here?
I could do with some of that weed, honestly.
Mr. Harley, Miss Phillips, I'm pretty sure appreciates how hard I have done a good job in providing some excellent accessibility settings in my game.
All right,
to make sure that people with any kind of special needs are able to play my game.
Oh god.
Neil, here's something that might surprise
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry,
I
Mr.
have-
Harley. I'm gonna have to interrupt you. Notice how incredibly physically fit my new character is. She can literally lift this thing on her own, as you can see.
Yeah. People can do that, but you know that's neither here nor there. But Neil, as I was going to say before you interrupted, I got a surprise for you. I have special needs. I've got Asperger's.
Well, unfortunately I have not exactly done my job in trying to make accessibility settings. I would appreciate if you come to Naughty Dog and properly explain to us how can we make some good accessibility settings for people who have Asperger's.
Oh boy, I can't wait to see those lovely work conditions you had your employees go through.
Yes.
I'm
Allegedly, I should stress.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to cancel our arrangement, Mr. Harley, because you seem very hateful in the way you speak to me.
I said allegedly.
Your words just feel very hateful to me.
He said allegedly, damn it.
I know, but it still felt very hateful to me, Miss Phillips.
You know, Neil, someone speaking in like the most monotone voice in the world can come off to you as being hateful.
Well, that's kind of what my good friend Miss Sarkeesian taught me. That if you don't agree with me, that means you're just hating me.
Where's it? Actually, that's a dumb question. Of course, I know where you learned it from.
It's the old, if you're with us, you're either with us or against us mentality. George Bush
Yeah,
would be
that's gonna
self-proud.
help. That's gonna get people around your cause, isn't it?
Well, I don't want any people around my cause that are just filled with hatred and bigotry in their hearts. It's appalling to me. How can there be so many people in the world that are so against having strong female characters in their media?
Neil,
Are
we just told you about Lara Croft and all that.
Yes, you've told me about that, but Lara Croft is a horrible example of a female protagonist created by
She's been around far longer than any of these characters.
Yes, and that's another example of a horrible female character who's horribly sexualized in media.
Sexualized? She has muscular legs, for freaking God.
True, but she also has big boobs, which means clearly that the character designer
Wow,
was
God
clearly
forbid
trying.
a woman have big boobs.
Well, you see, Miss Phillips, the problem with that is that it's clearly there for the titillation of the male gamer, the virgin male gamer specifically. So
Why are you so obsessed with whether people are virgins or not?
Neil, you're married.
Why are you obsessed if they're male gamers or not?
well, clearly only male gamers would hate Abby, Mr. Lewis.
And of course, only male gamers would be attracted to other women. Oh, wait.
I've never said that. I'm afraid you are trying to misconstrue what I'm saying. You are an
What?
incredibly hateful person. I'm afraid I'm going to have to just try my best to distance myself from you.
Actually, Neil, the implication you've given is that male gamers get titillated, but what exactly is your stance on female gamers getting titillated? Are you suggesting that it's okay for them to be titillated? Please, by all means, do elaborate so I may understand, Neil.
You have to understand, Mr. Lewis, that it's horrible when a person looks at a woman and feels some kind of sexual attraction. It's horrible. It's just so horrible that they objectify women sexually like that. You know?
Did you hear that, Sir Roy? Apparently you're objectifying women by being attracted to them.
There's a
No.
difference
You have to understand.
There's a difference between attraction and objectification.
No. You have to understand, Mr. Lewis. That only accounts when men do it. When it's a woman do it, it's okay.
Oh, and there comes the double standard.
I thought it wasn't okay to be sexist, Neil.
No. But that's you see, Miss Phillips. You happen to be an LGBT person, and therefore you are cool in my list.
Great.
So what? That means if I'm black, does it mean because I'm black, I now have a special pass in your eyes as well?
Yes, you do. Mr. Harley here, however, he can just go back to London or whatever the heck he lives and just stop being hateful.
I'm from the Midlands.
Also, Asperger's technically qualifies as a disability, so isn't he cool in your book too?
Neil, okay, Neil, that's okay. A couple of things. One, you're not helping my issue with Americans portraying British people. Because for the most part, I always see them every time they portray a British person, they think they're either from the royal family, or they have an incredibly thick London accent, even though that's not the case. And so I thought I thought you were all about trying to be accurate with portraying different kinds of people, regardless of whether they're a minority or not.
You see, you have to understand, Mr. Harley. It's a very complicated matter. You see, representation is not easy. Every day I'm just trying to get better and better and better and better. But anyway, at the end of this part, I would like to recap what has happened in terms of the story. As you can see, through brilliant use of my writing, I have demonstrated how...
Are you giving yourself all the credit now, are you?
Let him speak so he can go away.
Look. This particular part of the game was actually written by me. Haley, Miss Gross, I'm sorry, actually wrote other parts, yes. But this specific section was actually entirely written by me. So I can actually say that. Anyway, forgot this part. As you can see from my brilliant writing, Abby and Mel kind of feel a bit awkward with each other, because Mel, even though she said that she wanted to kill Ellie, she's still feeling a bit shook from what happened in Jackson, because, you see, she's a doctor. So obviously, she doesn't exactly take well with violence. And please don't ask me why a doctor went on an assassination mission. That's incredibly missing the point of my brilliance. So, at the same time, basically, Miss Manny here, who is being a very, very supportive friend, has decided to bring them together on this mission so they can try to reconciliate, So it's a great demonstration of what I'm showcasing, how wonderful it is for two female friends to reconciliate after a troubling period. It's a great demonstration of my incredible character relationship writing. So I thank you, everybody, for joining us in this part where I educate everybody here on how they should behave themselves and how incredibly important my material is for the good of mankind. So I would like to say goodbye to you all, and I will return to educate you even further in the next part. Farewell.
Help.
Please.